Home Assistant 2021.4 has just dropped, and in this video we're going to be having a look at 5 features that are part of the new update. Check it out. What's going on, guys? I hope you're all doing well. I've just come out of the Home Assistant live stream presented by Paulus and the others, and in that stream they've run through all the new changes that are part of this update. If you're interested in these live streams, I'll have a link for the official Home Assistant channel in the description below, so go and check that out. Every time there's an update they do a release party, and it's usually a good laugh, and you'll just hear the developers talking about all the new changes. You can also rewatch that video by checking out their channel, so any of the features I cover now, if you want some more information about it, be sure to watch that video because you'll be hearing about the features directly from the guys that create them. In the description below, I'll also have a link to the latest Home Assistant blog post, and in that blog post you can read all about the new changes. I'm a big fan of this update, hence the video. So with that said, here's a quick look at 5 new features. Okay, up first we've got the database upgrades. Now this one's not particularly a fun one, but I've included it in my 5 features, and the reason for that is that when you do the new upgrade, there's going to be a database migration, and what this means is that the database is going to change. So you as the user, you're not going to actually physically see anything because it's going to just happen in the background during that update. But what is going to happen is that Home Assistant is going to just be stuck loading for a little while, and the time it takes to load is going to depend on what system and what hardware you're using to actually run Home Assistant. So give it a few minutes, don't go pulling the plug or doing anything crazy, and if you've given it a few minutes and it still hasn't started doing anything, just give it a few more minutes. In addition to your hardware, it's also going to depend on how much history you've got stored in your database, so that's also going to add on a bit of time if you've got quite a lot stored. Next up, we've got the Home Assistant Analytics, and what these analytics are going to do are collect information about the various Home Assistant installation types and about different integrations that are currently in use. And then from that data, the developers will be able to see what are the most popular installation types or what integrations are popular. And this information is going to be useful because they'll be able to see what's the most popular thing, what are people using, what are they not, and then make development choices and changes based on those things. If you're worried about the whole analytics and sharing thing, then don't. The analytics are opt-in and they're disabled by default, so you have to actually turn it on to start using it. All of your analytics are all private and anonymized, and none of your personal information is shared. If you're after some more information about the analytics and how they work, I'll have a handy link in the description below to the actual documentation about it, so go and read that if you want. There's a public URL that you can go to, and it's just analytics.homeassistant.io, and if you go to that, it will take you to the actual analytics that are being tracked. On this page, we've got a nice visual representation of the information that's been captured. So here we can see some nice graphs and pie charts of the different Home Assistant installations. We've got the top versions of Home Assistant here, and we've got the top installation types for Home Assistant. And just below that, there's a nice little map graphic which you can zoom into, and you can see all the different installations which are in different countries and parts of the world. Back up at the top, we've also got statistics, and in the statistics we can see the average numbers for all of the different integrations, entities, automations and users. We can also see the number of installations that have currently chosen to share their analytics. So at the time of this video, there's 847, and of that 847, 730 have chosen to share the analytics. And again, back up at the top, we've got integrations. From this list, we can see what popular integrations are. So at the top there, we've got webhooks, we've also got the Amazon Alexa, and we've got MQTT. And to the right of it there, you've got the number of installations. That was a quick look at the public view of the analytics. If you want to share your analytics with Home Assistant, you're going to first need to enable it. So when your Home Assistant's updated, you're going to head into Configuration and General, and then on this page, you're going to just need to scroll down a bit, and then you'll see this new section here for Analytics. There's a little link just here which will tell you how Home Assistant process your data, so if you want more information on that, just give that a click. If not, just tick the boxes for all the analytics you want to share, and then just hit the Save button. If you're not seeing the analytics page, it means the account you're using isn't an owner, so you need to make sure you're logged in with an owner account. I would recommend you enable the analytics, but it's entirely up to you. Enabling them is going to give the developers more data to work with, and they're also going to be able to use these statistics when they approach big companies in order to get things like local APIs. So for example, from the data collected, they might be able to see that there's 22,000 people that use the TP-Link integration, and with this information, HomeAssistant could then go to TP-Link and say, hey, we have 22,000 users that use this, can we have that local API back please? And TP-Link will probably say, yeah, sure, and then do a 180 and take it away again. Okay, next up we've got the big one, automation debugging. How many times have you written an automation and then fired it off and expected it to work, and then just nothing happens, and then you just spend ages going through your logs or writing lots of tests to figure out why it didn't work? Well, that's where this is going to come in. And what this is an interactive graph which shows the route an automation took when it ran. Now that graph's broken down into little nodes, and each node is clickable, and when you click on the node you're going to get information about what the automation was doing at each step. Within automations now, you're going to see this new little icon, and when you click this icon, it's going to give you the debug information for that particular automation. So let's just go ahead and click this one now. We can see with this particular automation, I haven't run it, so there's no traces defined for it. If we just go back and click run, and then jump back into that trace, we can see here it's got its first step, and then it actually ran. And just within this one screen, we've got a lot of information about the automation. So we've got the step config, we can see any variables that changed, we can see anything that's related with the entities that you're using in that automation. And then the super useful one then is you've got the trace timeline. This particular automation was just a simple TTS call where it was going to get my Amazon Echo to announce something. In that trace timeline, we can see that the automation was manually triggered, and we can see the time it was triggered. We can also see it then try to do a call service, and then we can see it stopped and failed. In that stop node, we can see the time it failed, and we can actually see the error message for why it actually failed. This is going to be an absolute game changer because you're going to be able to write automations and test them and debug them, and you're going to be able to see wherever they failed or what point they stopped, or if they went a different route to what you expected. And back to Frank's example, you can see how having bigger automations that are more complex, having this highlighted route and being able to see this trace is just going to be super handy. You can also see any related logbook entries to that automation you ran, and you can actually see the config that ran when you ran the automation. So that's just in automation config there. I think in the live stream, Paula said it's the last 5 traces that are stored, and these are stored in running memory and not on your storage medium, so you don't need to worry about all of your storage being taken up by traces. He also noted that there was no performance effects using these traces. Now, when you reboot HomeAssistant, it's going to wipe those traces out, but if you do want to keep the traces, there is a handy little download button in the top right here, so you can download those. And if you do download those, it's going to give you the JSON for that particular trace. So that was a super quick look at the Automation Debugger or Automation Tracer. This tool is going to be so useful. It's going to be so helpful for just writing automations and finding bugs in them, or just making them run more efficiently. And I've only just scratched the surface of it really with this quick look. So I probably am going to come back to this in a future video dedicated just to this particular tool. Next up, we've got filtering for automation, scripts and scenes. And as you probably guessed, this is going to allow you to add a filter to these 3 sections. In the top right of any of those 3 sections now, you're going to have this little filter button. And when you press this, you're going to be able to filter by an area, by a device, or by an entity. So this is cool. It's going to allow you to set a filter, and when you set that filter, it's going to find things that touch, say, a specific area or a specific entity, and it does this with a bit of magic. So for example, let's say you do a device filter for your motion sensor. Any automation or script that touched this motion sensor is going to then appear in your filtered list. Or if you filtered by your media player entity, any automation or script again that touches that media player entity is going to appear in that list. So it's this new level of organization which is going to make it easier to find things that are linked together or referenced. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this one. Would you still rather have some kind of folder or a more visual way of actually categorizing your own automations and scripts? Okay, the last one I'm going to touch on then is trigger-based template sensors. So this particular feature is still in development, but this is the initial implementation of it. And it's quite an advanced feature, but at the same time, a really cool feature. So it's going to allow you to create template sensors, and these sensors are going to update with triggers and the information that comes with that trigger. So whenever a trigger fires, the sensor related to that particular trigger is going to update. If you're interested in this one, Paulus did a really good live demo using webhooks in the HomeAssistant release party. And if I remember, I'll try and timestamp that exact part and have that available in the description below. The trigger doesn't have to be a webhook, but in that particular example and the example in Paulus's demo, it was a webhook. But you can use any trigger that you would use in a normal automation in order to update that template sensor. And as I said, this feature's still being worked on, and this is the first kind of initial rollout for it. So currently it is only sensors that are working, but in the release party, they did mention that other platforms would be supported over time. There is a ton of other great things available in this release, but those are just 5 things that I really liked whilst watching the release party. And there we go, guys. What features did you like best in this new release? If you want to see me cover those 2 features I mentioned in the video in their own separate videos, then let me know in the comments below. Hopefully this has given you a little insight into some new features that are now available if you don't follow the Home Assistant blog or watch the release party. And if you don't do those things, then you definitely should. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, then don't forget to drop me a like rating. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button and ding dong the notification bell. You'll then be alerted to any future video I do. And I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.